Procreate just released a brand new update 5.4, and with it comes a whole lot of new features and a whole lot of new brushes. I haven't opened Procreate, this is completely my first reaction. Let's hop into it and see what we can make with it. Okay, so like I said before, it's kind of a huge update, and you can see here they have a video explaining what 5.4 is. Honestly, I only watched one YouTube video and it mainly looked, we have new brushes with Kyle T. Webster is the illustrator who made all of these brushes. So he's a famous brush creator. He did brushes for Photoshop, and I believe he does his own brushes. So it's really cool to see him working with Procreate. We've now got brush search, which will allow us to look for specific brushes. I know it can get really overwhelming. There are a lot of brushes in Procreate on top of the ones that you already make. And now they're adding even more brushes. So I'm super glad that they added that brush search and new brush settings. Not only are we going to have a more robust brush library, we're also going to have new ways of creating brushes and probably see a lot of new really cool brushes from other creators. But let's hop into this. All right, I have not actually gone into Procreate. This is genuinely my first reaction, so let's just go ahead and open a screen size and let's see. Okay, so I'm guessing that this is the new stuff. You can see the brush library. It already looks way more clean, less overwhelming. And we have gouache, we have watercolors. Now we have lettering, which I don't believe we had that before. So there are a lot of brushes to explore here. So let's just hop into a few. Okay, so with pencil, I don't think, oh, these are definitely new. This was not there before because I already really like this. I'm a big fan of brushes that have the way you can rotate the pencil, kind of mimicking like a chisel. And so you can get really thin strokes without having to worry too much about pressure control. But then you can also get really wide strokes just by the orientation of your pencil. I feel like it's a super clean and easy way to get very different brush strokes. I know I jumped right to the bottom. Let's just work our way up. I think this was here, maybe. Are all of these new? I bet. Okay, that's cool. I don't know. I think this was the classic one. Yeah, so these are all new. There's so many. Wait, hold on. Let's look. How many new brushes are there? 18 new sets with over 150 brushes. There are 150 new brushes, so that's really crazy. I forget how many brushes there were to start with, so all of these are entirely new brushes. And I sound like a Procreate advertisement, but that's okay because I love it and I'm all about alternative ways of working outside of Photoshop. So this is just really cool. I'm not a huge fan of that one, but it feels very, like if you look at the grain here, it just feels like a pencil. It feels more like a pencil than any other pencil that I've used from Procreate. All of these I bet are gonna feel really nice. That feels super nice. This feels kind of like one of the more saturated charcoals. You know, you can get soft lines, but you can get really deep, dark lines as well. And it has a nice taper, like a nice gradient. You can use it like, you know, how you would just charcoal. Instead of using the tip of your Apple Pencil, you can get it pretty much exactly on the side. And you can create really nice, soft edges and cover a larger space. And I love the texture. Like if we go into, I'm only on the second brush, but if I go into the grains and the shape just looks really nice and natural. The grain doesn't look like anything too special, it just looks like noise, honestly. But while we're here, let's look. I think, so I know they changed the preview a little bit. I'm a little bit scared to mess with this, but I guess that's kind of my job, is to show you guys. This is just the preview. Okay, so you can change how the preview looks, so how it's going to show up in your library. You can change the pressure, the scale, and you can change the angle. It's just a nice detail that you can make your brushes look how you want them to, especially for brush creators. That's going to be a big thing on selling your brushes. This is the thumbnail for people selling the brushes, so that's really cool. What I'm really here for is the brush library. So let's explore a few more brushes. All of these look super cool. It seems like this update is primarily focused on adding real world art mediums to a digital interface. Before, if we look, we had charcoals, we had, organic, industrial, luminance, but we really didn't have things like specific libraries for real world mediums like markers. There's an entire category just for markers. And what I'm thinking is we need to see how these react, because you can just see, look at how it oh my gosh, that just looks awesome. The way it smudges but also overlaps, I didn't like any of the marker type brushes that they had before, but this is just the first one I picked, and this is amazing. It just feels so good. If you guys ever use Adobe Fresco, you're gonna see that they have more brushes like this, but this doesn't take up quite the rendering for the iPad that those apps do. Oh, that I love how dark it gets. It looks real. That is just crazy. I am definitely going to use more marker brushes from now on. Any new inks? Yes, there is. Super cool. Really nice. Not too much difference if you tilt it on its side, but really splotchy, kind of gives you that feel of a traditional ink pen, which is really cool. I love how wavy it is. And for using that for comics would be super cool. Give it a really stylized effect. This is one of the smoother ones. You can see it, you could get a dry brush effect, from turning it on its side. I want to show you guys the really interesting ones like this. Oh my word. That is insane. Let's see how it blends. Doesn't blend, so that's a little sad, but wow, it just feels like watercolor. You can get super light. Let's see how that, and the way it bleeds is really nice. In the way it overlaps, you can get really nice gradients, getting super dark. That is awesome. There are so many brushes. If you guys want me to do a video going through every new brush, please let me know in the comments. But I just wanted to kind of hop on here and just give you my first impressions before, so you can see the real reactions, and they're super nice. Just all of it. I could totally see, oh my gosh, I'm going to be, I don't even think I'm going to go back to this library. I'm just going to use the new one. It seems so comprehensive. I don't even see the need for this one, including any of the brushes that I've made to fill the gaps of the original library. I love this. This almost feels more like a brush. It's just so nice. Look at the detail. And I'm not even on super crazy canvas. I can show you guys. I have 132 DPI. This is 300. Same everything, just better detail. It's just you can kind of, I feel with some brushes in Procreate, you really had to hide the brushes. But with these, I'd feel totally comfortable just leaving that there. Making work that's less finished, because that looks like I painted that, but not like a brush that I'm just inserting. Okay, that's just inks. Oh, I wasn't even looking at the markers, was I? But the markers, again, looks awesome. Actually looks like a marker, unlike if we can just take a second to look at Procreate's old marker. Where is it? Oh, you know what I can do? I can look for it in their new search bar. Okay, they had marker roll. Here's the traditional Procreate marker. Okay, that is the traditional Procreate marker. It has the cool, you can layer it. You can't change the opacity just from your pressure. The shape is pretty boring. The texture is non-existent. Okay, now let's go to just the first marker. You can change the opacity. You can basically see that it's like, it's translucent. Like, it's not opaque like this. This looks like it is a material, an ink, on a piece of paper. This looks like a digital asset. And you can just, it still overlaps the same, but it blends. You can blend this. You can see the texture within it, whereas this is just so flat, the texture is only at the edges. And it just, you can just tell that love was put into these brushes. And probably a whole lot of money too. It's fun. It's way more fun than this to draw with. And look how deep it gets, but it's not like it's just turning black. It's like, it feels saturated. And then if I go over it with a different color, it just feels like I'm actually drawing with like a marker versus this. If you want something that feels like a traditional medium, like I'm gonna put up a video of like an artist who uses those big Copic chisel markers. I'd be interested to know if he just does some art with this, because it feels like it. The way that it just shows up on the canvas is just really nice. Okay, let's get on to the other ones. I have no interest in pastels in real life, so that's probably a compliment, is that, wow, this actually feels like a pastel and I don't care about it, because I don't care about them in real life. I don't use them. So I have nothing really to compare this to. Let's see how it looks with layering. Okay, what I will say about this is that the way that you can see the blue through the pink, like you can still see all of the colors. It's not like you're covering up the blue with the pink. You're layering. So I will say, without even having to use layers, I'm layering the texture. Before you kind of had to use a bunch of layers to get a traditional effect, whereas now you can just do it all in one layer and it looks great with just the skill of the artist. So that's really cool. Oils. This is what I'm very interested in because I love how they smudge. This is a super rough one, but I feel like watercolors and oils would definitely be the hardest to get right, and it feels right. Just the way it smudges. I know that they did some pretty good oil brushes in the original Procreate library. Look at that. It's like using a brush and a smudge tool all at the same time. You don't need to use a bunch of digital hacks to now get a traditional look. You can just use the digital tools to be more convenient to get a traditional look faster. There are obviously artists who are creating beautiful digital art before this update, but I feel like this is just going to open the door, being more accessible to traditional artists who want to mess around with digital art, and with digital artists who want to create a traditional look. It's just going to be easier and faster, and honestly it might encourage them to rely less on digital hacks like layers and layer modes. Really just, it's amazing and it feels so good, and as a digital creator I am super excited. It's just, oh, look at that. The oil's awesome. If there was one medium that I'd be worried that they couldn't get right, it would be this. Watercolors, right there. That is always the problem child for digital art. Fresco did it really nice, but it absolutely takes a toll on your iPad and its processing power. So let's see how they did it. Everyone does it differently, so let's just go into the first one, Black Swan, and see how it does. Okay, for starters, oh my gosh. Yeah, they did it right. You can tilt it, get a really soft effect. Just smudge it out, blend it out the way you would watercolor. You know what else this is going to do is going to make watching digital artists way more fun. All right, what we do have to do is we have to figure out how does it layer. What I'd be worried about is it getting muddy, and it doesn't get muddy. One of the best things about watercolor is that you can get really clean edges that then stand out from the gradients that you can get with watercolor. If watercolor is just all gradients, then it doesn't look really good. But when you have watercolor and you have a couple of clean edges, it just looks so nice. Okay, this one feels really nice. This one is Tidewalker. Feels really good. If there's a brush that you don't like say I don't like Penguin, you're not gonna have a problem finding a watercolor brush that works for you. Let's hop in to charcoal. Really nice. Everything feels softer in this update. Like, it's not too much. It's not too overwhelming, and the texture looks nice. And that just feels really nice. I feel like I'm smudging it across the paper, which is really cool because that's, something you do with charcoal is like you can use your hands and just kind of smudge it across. And I feel like that's what I'm doing with this brush. I feel like I'm actually layering it versus like just painting on top of it. Here we go. This is what I've wanted from Procreate for so long, is a rake brush. Thank you, Procreate. I have made so many rake brushes because it's just kind of it's a cool effect to add. I've made so many, and they're not as good as this one. So thank you, Procreate, for making a rake brush because it was desperately needed. Look at that. Look at that. That's so cool. See, they're just, like I said before, it's just that you can accomplish effects faster. That's all this is just, you can just create it quicker. That is all this is. And look at that. That's so cool. Thank you, Procreate, for adding a rake brush. I don't know if it's just placebo, but all of these feel just a little bit better than their counterparts in the original library. Lettering. I know a lot of people use Procreate for lettering, and I know a lot of people are going to be in this section. I'm just not a big fan of brushes with stability, or with stabilization, but I know there are uses for them. So that's really cool. And that is really cool. Wow. Okay. That's awesome. I love, this is an outline brush. You could totally go in, edit this a little bit, and you have an outline brush. But generally, I don't really use, but that's really nice. That's so nice. It's like a bubble lettering tool that a lot of people make themselves, and now Procreate's just like, here you go. Have one for the price of $13. Just crazy. The amount of value that Procreate offers without charging a subscription. Please never change Procreate because it's awesome. They just keep adding and getting better, and they're not upping their price really. So just that's awesome. Comics. This is one that I was starting to build out myself because there's a need for it. There are a lot of people who make digital comics on Procreate, and you can see here I started to make my own. There's a gap in the Procreate library, and it needed to be filled, and they're doing that. They are noticing what they're missing, and they're fixing it. Just a couple of really, they're basically inking brushes here, but they feel really good. They're not completely opaque. They're a little bit transparent, which I feel like it's not about making a completely perfect brush. It's like adding those little imperfections that come with traditional media. Some of the really specialized brushes are things like this, where we can get really like gritty looks, which is really exciting because, doing something like this would take absolutely forever traditionally, but you can just go in and get a really gritty cross-hatching look without doing this 1,000 times traditionally. So that's really nice. I created a similar brush to kind of fulfill that need. You could use this for like those old 90s like looking power, like glowing around their hand. I can definitely see a lot of people using this for that effect, which is just really cool. It's going to add a lot of style to people's art. And of course, your traditional newsprint look. And I like that it like blends together. It's not overlapping, but it has that really, oh, that's so cool. I'm definitely going to be using this one. This is super cool. And then another version of it, probably, yeah, a little bit tighter of a pattern, a little bit more uniform, and a little bit more round too. But you can get a finer, like, it does react to pressure, just not as tapered at the end. And if you go back over it, it doesn't matter if you pick up your pen, it's still going to connect the textures. That's a problem with some of them, is like they don't connect. But if I start over here, obviously all of these are part of the same pattern. But then if I lift my pen and take it over here and connect the two, they still line up, which is wonderful. I'm a big fan of that. All right, design. This is totally new. This is just so different. Adding little effects like a dotted line without having to do it manually. That is just awesome. And like, it just feels good. So that is really cool. I don't know what, this looks like a design pencil maybe. I'm not really sure what the point of that is too much. Maybe this is like the pen equivalent. Yeah, not really sure what these three are. This definitely looks like a marker, and this I'm going to be using because this is just really fun to use. And it feels really nice. It feels like, it just feels good. I hope you guys, just get on and use these brushes because it just feels so nice. Look at that. Oh, it just feels good. Look at that. And I love brushes that have one side that it's a little bit more saturated. That is such a big thing in art, is having hard edges and soft edges and having a balance. And you can do that immediately without having to use the select tool and then going in with a faded brush and adding that. You can just do it right there. So that's awesome. And I'm also just a big fan of the noise texture and how that looks. And I can definitely see designers using that. And then you got your dotted line. You have like kind of a random dot line, which is cool because you could literally just put this on your screen and you could use that as a grid to draw on. Like you would use a dotted notebook to start designing logos. So that's just really cool. Same with here. You have this, and just immediately, boom, I can start sketching logos and know that they're proportionate. This is Grunge, which is just so cool. This is just going to be another set of just really unique creative brushes. So that's just so cool. I'm kind of just going to go through these quickly because there's so many, and I really want to get to creative because that is like so different. But it's amazing that they have just so many new textures to play with. It just adds so much. But a lot of cool textures. This is wild. I don't know exactly what this does, but Interesting. I like the texture. It almost looks like watercolor. Let's kind of smudgy. This is so different. I don't know what I'd be using this for. It's very unique, but it's cool. Cool. Maybe grass. Honestly, like for my needs, it's just a really nice texture. And this could be a really nice texture too, just adding texture all across. But okay, street art. Nice. I honestly don't even know what street art means. Is it spray painting? Because it doesn't really feel like that. Maybe it's supposed to be though. But I'm not going to go too into depth with street art. Let's hop into the one I'm most excited for, creative. First one, celery top. Just really unique. Now it's a pattern kind of texture, so it's never gonna change depending on the orientation of your brush, but it feels really nice and it's definitely interesting. But what does kind of change is the harder you press, the wider the texture gets. So that's really interesting, and I love how this looks. That's super cool. And if you change the orientation of the brush, okay, it doesn't change on the canvas. Okay, this is just so interesting. I really like brushes like this that just are kind of just wild cards. Is this going to be the most practical brush? No. But it might just be something that just at the end of your art, you're like, this needs something. And this is where you're going to go. To add texture, to add crazy effects like this. It's just so different. It's smudgy. It has a lot of color variation in it, a lot of hue variation. And it just looks cool. You can see like the hue variation from like these more royal blues to like lighter, more greener blue. I really like this one actually, especially if I was like doing really textured art and things like this. Okay, this just makes me think of that artist that smears plaster across his canvas, and it's just like, but it also has color variation. So again, this is not going to be your most reach for brush, but I mean, look at that. That's a screensaver. Just do this, and you've got an iPhone screensaver. That looks so nice. This one, feels kind of muddy. It's like there's little like, flakes of paint still like stuck in there. You're just scraping it across, so that's cool. That's really cool. I can see a lot of more graphic artists using these textures. Wow. They're all kind of smudgy and they just have different textures and they all have hue variation. But that's just really cool for like if you're trying to get a more painterly effect and you want that natural hue variation throughout your art without having to do it manually. Alright, obviously I did not cover all of these brushes. There are too many to cover in a video like this. So if you guys want to see me cover every single brush in the new Procreate brush library, let me know. Leave a comment, leave a like, and I'll go through them one by one. If you have an iPad and you don't have Procreate, I highly recommend get Procreate. It's just such a good tool, and it's honestly so affordable, and I can't wait to see what the artist community, what the Procreate community creates with these brushes. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you like it, please subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, I'd love to say hello, and have a great day. Bye.